Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more notable names in African American history. Today, we are talking about Stokely Carmichael. Now, let's get into this straight from biography. He was a Trinidadian American civil rights leader known for leading the SNCC and the Black Panther Party in the 60s. He rose to prominence as a member and later the chairman of the SNCC, working with Martin Luther King Jr. and other Southern leaders to stage protests. He later lost his faith in the tactic of nonviolence, promoting Black Power and allying himself with the militant Black Panther Party, renaming himself Kwame Ture. He spent most of his later years in Guinea, where he died in 1998. So, yeah, he starts off working along the same route as Dr. King and many others. In fact, he was mentor to, what was the guy's name? Armstrong. I read the book. It was, the name of it was like a foot soldier during the civil rights era and the Birmingham bus boycott. He was the mentor of that guy, so I have that playlist on my channel if you want to check that out. But yeah, now he was born on June the 29th, 1941, in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Carmichael's parents immigrated to New York when he was a toddler, leaving him in care of his grandmother until the age of 11, when he followed his parents to the United States. So his parents immigrated when he was still just a toddler, but he was cared for by his grandmother until 11, when he followed them into the U.S. His mother, Mabel, was a stewardess for a steamship line, and his father, Adolphus, worked as a carpenter by day and a taxi driver by night. An industrious and optimistic immigrant, Adolphus Carmichael chased a version of the American dream that his son would later criticize as an instrument of racist economic oppression. My old man believed in this work and overcome stuff, recalled Carmichael. He was religious, never lied, never cheated or stole. He did carpentry all day and drove taxis all night. The next thing that came to that poor black man was death from working too hard. And he was only in his 40s. In 1954, at the age of 13, Stokely Carmichael became a naturalized citizen and his family moved to a predominantly Italian and Jewish neighborhood in the Bronx called Morris Park. Soon Carmichael became the only black member of a street gang called the Morris Park Dukes. So yeah, born 41. So he was at this point age 13. I should just look at that right over, but yeah. In 56, Carmichael passed the admissions test to get into the prestigious Bronx High School of Science, where he was introduced to an entirely different social set: the children of New York City's rich, white, liberal elite. Carmichael was popular among his new classmates as he attended parties frequently and dated white girls. However, even at that age, he was highly conscious of the racial differences that divided him from his classmates, and later recalled, now that I realize how phony they all were, how I hate myself for it. Being liberal was an intellectual game with these cats. They were still white and I was black. Though he had been aware of the civil rights movement for years, it was not until one night toward the end of high school when he saw footage of a sit-in on television that Carmichael felt compelled to join the struggle. When I first heard about Negroes sitting in at lunch counters in the South, he later recalled, I thought they were just a bunch of publicity hounds. But one night when I saw these young kids on TV getting back up on the lunch counter stools after being knocked off them, sugar in their eyes, ketchup in their hair, well, something happened to me. Suddenly I was burning. He joined CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, picketed a Woolworth store in New York, and traveled to sit-ins in Virginia and South Carolina. Now, I also have on my channel playlist dealing with Dr. King's speeches and writings, and two groups you see a lot that he often worked with: Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, and the SNCC, the Southern, I think it was the Southern Negro something Church Coalition or something like that, Colored Coalition. I can't remember exactly, but the SNCC and CORE King worked a lot with, so yeah. A stellar student, Carmichael received scholarship offers at a variety of prestigiously predominantly white people's universities after graduating high school in 1960. He chose instead to attend the historically black Howard University in Washington, D.C., majoring in philosophy, studying the works of Camus Sartre and Santayana. I know I'm butchering the names. And considering ways to apply their theoretical frameworks to the issues facing the civil rights movement. He graduated from Howard with honors in 1964. So yeah, guy was clearly intelligent. While a freshman at Howard University in 61, he went on his first Freedom Ride, an integrated bus tour through the South to challenge the segregation of interstate travel. During that trip, he was arrested in Jackson, Mississippi for entering the whites-only bus stop waiting room and jailed for 49 days. Undeterred, Carmichael remained actively involved in the civil rights movement throughout his college years, participating in another Freedom Ride in Maryland, a demonstration in Georgia, and a hospital workers' strike in New York. So yeah. Carmichael left school at a critical moment in history of the civil rights movement. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, that's what it was, SNCC, had dubbed the summer of 64 Freedom Summer and rode out an aggressive campaign to register black voters in the Deep South. With his eloquence, charisma, and natural leadership skills, the newly minted college graduate was quickly appointed field organizer for Lowndes County, Alabama. When he arrived there in 65, African Americans made up the majority of the population but remained entirely unrepresented in government. Think about that. The county was majority black, but no representation in government. In 1 year, Carmichael managed to raise the number of registered black voters from 70 to 2,600, 300 more than the number of registered white voters in the county. Unsatisfied with the response of either of the major political parties' two registration efforts, Carmichael founded his own party, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. To satisfy a requirement that all political parties have an official logo, he chose a Black Panther, which later inspired the Black Panthers. By the time, early in his time with the SNCC, Carmichael adhered to the philosophy of nonviolent resistance espoused by King. In addition to moral opposition to violence, proponents of nonviolent resistance believed in a strategy would win support for civil rights by drawing a sharp contrast, captured on nightly television, between the peacefulness of the protesters and the brutality of the police and hecklers opposing them. However, as time went on, Carmichael, like many young activists, became frustrated with the slow pace of progress and with having to endure repeated acts of violence and humiliation at the hands of white police officers without recourse. Yeah. It takes a lot to deal with the constant beatings, having dogs sicked on you, the use of water hoses, and you weren't supposed to fight back violently because the idea is to show you were peaceful. And that it was a system that was hurting you. But there was so much resistance that the pace was slow. Remember, it wouldn't be until 1964 that the civil rights, that the Lyndon B. Johnson Civil Rights Act was signed into law. And King himself would be murdered in 1968. So, yeah, even though it was a worthy goal, a lot of people were just frustrated. By the time he was elected national chairman of the SNCC in May of 1966, Carmichael had largely lost faith in the theory of nonviolent resistance that he once held dear. As chairman, he turned the SNCC in a sharply radical direction, making it clear that white members were no longer welcome. In June of 1966, after activist James Meredith was shot during his solitary walk against fear from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi, Carmichael decided that the SNCC volunteers should carry on the march in his place. Upon reaching Greenwood, Mississippi, the enraged leader gave the address for which he would best be remembered. "We've been saying freedom for 6 years," he cried. "What are we going to start saying now is black power." The phrase black power quickly caught on as a rallying cry of the younger, more radical generation of civil rights activists. The term also resonated internationally, becoming the slogan of resistance to European imperialism in Africa. In his 1968 book, Black Power, The Politics of Liberation, Carmichael explained the meaning of the term. It is a call for black people in this country to unite, to recognize their heritage, to build a sense of community. It is a call for black people to define their own goals and their own organizations. Black Power also represented Carmichael's break with King's doctrine of nonviolence and its end goal of racial integration. Instead, he associated the term with the doctrine of black separatism, articulated most prominently by Malcolm X. When you talk of black power, you talk of building a movement that will smash everything Western civilization has created. Unsurprisingly, the term proved controversial, evoking fear in many white Americans, even those previously sympathetic to the civil rights movement, and exacerbating fissures in the movement itself between older proponents of nonviolence and younger advocates of separatism. King called Black Power an unfortunate choice of words. In 1967, Carmichael took a transformative journey traveling outside the United States to visit with revolutionary leaders in Cuba, North Vietnam, China, and Guinea. Upon his return to the U.S., he left the SNCC and became the Prime Minister of the radical Black Panthers. He spent the next 2 years speaking around the country and writing essays on black nationalism, black separatism, and increasingly Pan-Africanism, which ultimately became Carmichael's life cause. Now remember, these were much of the same ideations that we spoke of when dealing with Marcus Garvey in the last episode. So yeah, Carmichael was thinking upon that same line. In '69, Carmichael quit the Black Panthers and left the U.S. to take up permanent residence in Conakry, Guinea. America does not belong to the blacks, he said, explaining his departure from the country. He changed his name to Kwame Ture to honor both the president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, and the president of Guinea, Sékou Touré, and dedicated his life to Nkrumah's All-African People's Revolutionary Party, forging ties with activist and indigenous groups around the world. He was married twice during this time, first to a South African singer, Miriam Makeba, and then to a Guinean doctor named Marliatou Barry, with whom he had a son. In 1971, he published Stokely Speaks, From Black Power to Pan-Africanism, a collection of essays and speeches in 1986. He would be arrested for his association with the deceased Toure and briefly jailed on charges of plotting to overthrow the new military government, although he made frequent trips back to the U.S. on behalf of the AARP to advocate Pan-Africanism. He would, as the only true path to liberation for black people, Carmichael maintained permanent residence in Guinea for the rest of his life. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1996, and although it is unclear precisely what he meant, he said publicly that his cancer was given to me by the forces of American imperialism and others who conspired with them. The ailing revolutionary was treated at New York City's Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in his final years before he passed away at home in Conakry on November the 15th, 1998, at the age of 57. But yeah. let's see. Look at the Britannica entry. Born June 29, 1941. Died November 15, 1998. As a West Indian-born civil rights activist. Again, he was Trinidad and Tobago, which those have been called the West Indies. Leader of black nationalism in the U.S. and originator of the rallying slogan Black Power. Graduated from Howard University with honors, became a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, took part in the Freedom Rides. Graduated from Howard University. Continued working in the civil rights movement. Became a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Took part in the Freedom Rides. Joined the SNCC in Lowndes County, Alabama. Continued working in the to help civil rights organize movement. Voters, African American voters, going down to Alabama, and would do a great job because they helped him overtake the number of white the SNCC voters, in Lowndes County, Alabama, to help organize voters, African American voters. He backed the ideation and would do a great job espoused by Dr. King, because they helped him overtake the number of white increasingly frustrated. Having witnessed beatings and murders of civil rights activists, would become chairman of the SNCC. He backed the ideation, take them more espoused by Dr. King, but would become more increasingly frustrated, self-defensive, having witnessed beatings and murders form of civil rights activists, would become and would start espousing self-defense tactics, self-determination, political and economic power, and racial pride. Yeah. There was clearly some issues with it by many of the population. See, if you remember my videos on the Dr. King speeches and essays, he talks about peaceful protest as a way to try to force integration and more civil, more equal rights. And more civil, more equal rights. While he did win victories, but too many people thought he was moving too slow. While he did win victories in the African American population, although there was still a number that would prefer the more peaceful tactics. He was moving too slow as far as really in the African American population. Split the African American population. Although there was still a number that would prefer the more peaceful tactics King used. That's why it really kind of split the African American population, because even more moderate, moderate blacks were struggling with it. Some said, we need to move forward. We need to be, moderate blacks were insistent and physical with our actions. Some said, we need to move forward. We need to be indifference to what King said. And many whites insistent and physical with our actions. If you remember, as I said, when I read the King speeches and writings, to what King said, and many whites, the biggest problem always tends to be the moderate whites. We want you to have rights, but can't you just go a little slower? He's like, the racist white man, I can at least understand him. it's his goal to prevent my freedom. And he makes no bones about it. But the moderate may claim they want us to have equal rights, freedom, civil rights. But they're like, please go slower. So yeah, you can imagine how a more aggressive attempt to gain civil rights made other whites feel. Because they were even like, King, you going too fast. Before leaving the SMCC in '68, Carmichael traveled abroad, speaking out against political and economic oppression and denouncing U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. Highly unliked war in American history, the Vietnam War. Upon his return, Carmichael's passport was confiscated and held for 10 months. He left the United States in 1969 and moved with his first wife, whom he was married to from 1968 to 1979, South African singer Miriam Makeba, to Guinea, West Africa. He also changed his name to Kwame Ture in honor of two early proponents of Pan-Africanism, Ghanaian Kwame Nkrumah and Guinean Sekou Toure. Carmichael helped to establish All African People's Revolutionary Party, an international political party dedicated to Pan-Africanism and the plight of Africans worldwide. In '71, he writes Stokely Speaks, Black Power, Back to Pan-Africanism. Yeah. But we also have the entry on the National Archives and Wikipedia entry. So yeah. Who was that guy? I cannot think of his name. Say it for me. The guys, I think it's Armstrong or something like that. Like I said, I've got the playlist where I read the book for it. I'm wanting to say the guy's name was something Armstrong. Bus boycott. Well, I keep looking, but I can't see it, so I'm not going to spend the rest of my time looking for it. Anyway, yeah. Just wanted to talk a bit about who Stokely Carmichael was. Yeah, at the bottom of this archives.gov, the last paragraph reads, records at the National Archives pertaining to Stokely Carmichael include Federal Bureau of Investigation case files and the CIA's surveillance of his travels abroad. Again, the FBI, yeah, led by J. Edgar Hoover, not the trustworthiest of people. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and end that episode there. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.